It is November of 1978, and Dr. Elias Moran is standing in cold rain on the edge of the Olympic Peninsula with a canvas veterinary satchel in one hand and a pressurized lantern in the other, listening to a sound that should not exist. 3 deliberate knocks on cedar spaced 5 seconds apart, then silence, then 3 more, deeper in the timber. He has heard this pattern twice before in the last hour, and each time he follows, the knocks move farther from the logging road and closer to a part of the forest where compasses spin lazy and uncertain. His truck is a mile behind him now. His wife thinks he is attending a mare with colic. His boots are caked in mud the color of rust, and his breath comes out in clouds that hang in the beam of his lantern like frozen questions. He does not know what he is walking toward, but he knows, he has known since the 3rd knock, that something is in labor, and that it is dying. He reaches a hollow beneath a massive old-growth cedar. The ground is soft with moss and decades of rot. The rain has eased to mist, and there, in the amber edge of lantern light, he sees her. She is enormous, broader across the shoulders than any man he has ever worked on, covered in dark hair matted wet, her face a mix of ape and human and something older than both. Her eyes are half closed, her breathing shallow and rapid. One hand grips a low branch, the other rests across her abdomen, which is grotesquely swollen and straining. She does not flee. She watches him, and in that gaze Elias sees what he has seen 1,000 times in cows and horses and dogs brought too late to his clinic. Please, help me. If stories like this pull you into the fog and the firelight, hype the video and subscribe. I tell these with a lot of care, and your support keeps me brave enough to keep going. Thank you for being here. Elias sets the lantern on a flat stone and opens his satchel with hands that are steadier than his heart. He has been a large animal veterinarian for 11 years. He has pulled breech calves in lightning storms, stitched a horse's flank by flashlight, amputated a dog's leg on a kitchen table when the roads were snowed shut. He knows the anatomy of muscle and bone, the rhythm of contractions, the terrible physics of birth when something goes wrong. But this is not a cow. This is not a horse. He kneels in the moss 2 yards from her and speaks in the same low, steady voice he uses with frightened animals. I'm going to help you. I need to see what's happening. I'm not going to hurt you. She does not respond with sound, but she shifts her weight, lets her knees splay slightly, and tilts her hips forward. Permission. Elias moves closer. The smell is overwhelming, sweat and earth and something wild and iron-rich, like blood that has been in the body too long. He can see the vulva is swollen, the tissue dark and stretched, but there is no crowning, no part of an infant visible. Her contractions come, hard and fast. He can see the wave of them tighten across her belly, but nothing is progressing. The infant is stuck. He pulls on a pair of elbow-length obstetric gloves, the kind he uses for cows, and gestures gently. She understands. She leans back against the trunk of the cedar, bracing herself, and he begins a careful internal exam. The infant is enormous. He can feel the curve of a skull, but it is tilted wrong, and behind it, wedged against the pelvis, is a shoulder, broad and locked. Shoulder dystocia, one of the most dangerous complications in any birth, human or animal. If the shoulder stays trapped, the infant will suffocate in the birth canal. If Elias pulls too hard, he can sever nerves, fracture bones, or tear the mother internally. He has maybe 5 minutes. He withdraws his hand, wipes it on his pant leg, and thinks. In horses, he would reposition manually and apply traction with a strap. In humans, the McRoberts maneuver, or suprapubic pressure, but she is neither. Her pelvis is immense but differently shaped, flatter, broader. Her musculature is unlike anything he has studied. He reaches into his satchag and pulls out a coil of soft wool blanket he keeps for wrapping newborn foals. He folds it into a sling. Then he takes 2 smooth river stones from the edge of the hollow, cold, palm-sized, and places them near the small fire that someone or something has already built in a shallow pit lined with flat shale. The coals are low but still hot. The stones begin to warm. Elias speaks again, quietly. "I need you to shift onto your side, left side." She stares at him. He mimes the movement, pointing, gesturing. She understands. Slowly, with a deep groan that vibrates through the ground, she rolls onto her left side. He kneels behind her, wraps the wool sling under her upper thigh, and hooks it over his shoulder. He is going to try a modified Gaskin maneuver, a technique sometimes used in human midwifery when mothers labor on hands and knees, but adapted, improvised, held together by hope and a veterinarian's mechanical understanding of leverage. He pulls the warmed stones from the fire using a fold of his sleeve, wraps them quickly in a scrap of burlap, and presses them gently against the moo's lower belly, just above the pubic bone. The heat will relax the muscles, buy him seconds, maybe a half-inch of space. Then he reaches in again. He finds the anterior shoulder, hooks 2 fingers behind it, and rotates slowly, firmly, while lifting the sling with his other arm to shift the angle of her pelvis. The infant moves a quarter turn. He feels the shoulder slip past the bone. The head follows. Elias pulls with steady, even pressure, the way he was taught to pull a calf, firm but not violent, with the rhythm of the contraction, not against it. The infant slides free into his hands. It is silent. Elias lays the newborn on a bed of dry cedar boughs he swept clear with his boot. The infant is covered in vernix and blood, massive, easily 12 pounds, with a face that is flatter than a human baby's, a nose broad and low, limbs thick and already muscled. But it is not breathing. He tilts the head back, clears the airway with his pinky finger wrapped in gauze, and begins rhythmic chest compressions with 2 fingers, the way he learned to resuscitate foals whose hearts have stopped. 1, 2, 3. Pause. Breathe into the tiny nose and mouth. 1, 2, 3. Nothing. He does it again. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. The infant gasps, a shuddering wet inhale, then a thin, high wail that echoes off the cedar and fades into the mist. Elias exhales for what feels like the first time in an hour. He wraps the infant in the wool blanket, wipes its face, and gently places it on the mother's chest. She is breathing hard, her eyes half closed, but her arms come up, huge, careful, and she cradles the baby against her body. The infant roots, finds a nipple the size of Elias's thumb, and begins to nurse. For a long moment, there is only the sound of rain on leaves and the crackle of coals in the fire pit. Then Elias hears movement. He turns slowly. 3 adults stand at the edge of the hollow. 2 males, broad and tall as young pines, and 1 smaller figure, maybe juvenile, with limbs still lanky and unfinished. Their eyes reflect the lantern light in gold-green flashes. They do not approach. They do not threaten. They simply stand, watching. One of the males steps forward. He is older, scarred across the brow, his hair streaked with silver. He kneels in front of Elias and extends one hand, thick-fingered, leathery, the palm lined like driftwood. Elias does not move. The male touches Elias's wrist, just once, a deliberate, gentle pressure. Then he reaches into a woven pouch hanging from his shoulder and pulls out a small object. It is carved from driftwood, no longer than a domino, and etched with concentric circles that spiral inward to a center point. He places it in Elias's open palm and closes the vet's fingers around it. The male steps back. The others form a circle around Elias, the mother, the 3 adults, the juvenile. They do not speak. They do not make a sound. But Elias feels it as certain as a pulse. You are one of us now. You are the keeper of this. He nods. There are no words for what he has just agreed to, but the agreement is absolute. The circle breaks. The males help the mother to her feet. She is unsteady but strong. The infant clings to her chest, already alert, already looking around with dark, ancient eyes. The group moves silently into the timber, shadows swallowed by shadows, until Elias is alone in the hollow with his satchel and his lantern and the dying fire. He stands there for 5 minutes, maybe 10, listening to his own heartbeat slow. Then he packs his instruments, caps the lantern, and begins the long walk back to his truck. When he gets home, the porch light is still on. His wife, Anna, is asleep in the chair by the wood stove, a mending basket in her lap. He sets his boots on the mat by the door. There is mud on the doormat, and in the center of the mud, clear as a signature, is a single print. 5 toes, broad as a dinner plate, pressed deep into the fiber. Elias stares at it for a long time. Then he goes to his desk, opens his field ledger, and writes in careful slanted script, November 14th, 1978. Shoulder dystocia resolved, live birth, full term, patient stable, species unknown, location withheld. He pauses, taps the pen against the page, then adds one more line. Who did I just become? He tucks the driftwood talisman into the desk drawer beneath a fold of maps and closes the book. Outside, the rain begins again, and somewhere deep in the timber, a pattern of knocks echoes 3 times, then falls silent. The second delivery happens 14 months later, in January of 1980. Elias finds the signal on a Tuesday morning while checking fence posts along the tree line of his eastern pasture. A cairn of river stones stacked in a tight spiral, each stone placed with deliberate care, sitting on the stump where he sometimes leaves salt licks for deer. He has never built this cairn. He has never seen it before, but he understands it immediately. Someone needs him. He tells Anna he is driving out to the Jacobson Ranch to check on a lame gelding. He packs his satchel with the same instruments he carried that first night: gloves, iodine, gut suture, a hand-pumped suction bulb, wool blankets, and adds a coil of braided cotton rope and a bottle of grain alcohol for sterilization. He drives 12 miles down a logging road that dead ends at a creek, parks beneath a stand of alder, and walks the rest of the way in. The cairn system becomes his first vocabulary. By 1983, he has learned to read 6 distinct patterns. A simple stack, 4 stones high, means a routine check. No emergency, but they want him to come when he can. A spiral cairn, like the first one, means labor has begun. 2 spirals side by side mean complications, breach, distress, bleeding. A cairn with a stone placed flat on top like a lid means the visit is canceled. Danger nearby, human presence, keep away. A cairn knocked over and scattered means do not come back here. That site is compromised. And a single white stone left on his porch rail means they are watching, and they are grateful. He finds white stones 11 times in the first 5 years. The tools evolve because they have to. Elias cannot bring anything modern into the forest, no stainless steel that glints in firelight, no plastic that carries the petroleum smell of the 20th century. Nothing with batteries, nothing that clicks or beeps or hums. The clan has senses he cannot match. Smell that reads fear and adrenaline from 50 yards away, hearing that catches the mechanical tick of a wristwatch, sight that sees the blue spectrum glow of a digital thermometer as a flare in the dark. So he adapts. He takes a pair of obstetric forceps, meant for pulling calves, and wraps the handles in strips of burlap soaked in beeswax to dull the shine and muffle the metal. He pads the blades with wool batting sewn into sleeves so they will not scrape or bruise tissue. He carves retractors from cedar wood, sanding them smooth and boiling them in salt water for hours to harden the grain. He makes a suction bulb by hand-stitching a leather bladder to a copper tube. He scavenges from an old water pump designed to clear airways without the rubber smell of modern hospital equipment. He knits slings from undyed wool, no chemical dyes, no synthetic fibers, because the clan will not let anything touch a newborn that smells like a factory. His instruments begin to look like relics, like things pulled from a museum of frontier medicine, but they work. In April of 1984, he is called to a breech berth in a hollow 7 miles past the last maintained trail. The mother is young, small for her kind, and the infant is coming feet first with one arm trapped alongside the body. Elias has seen this in heifers. If the arm is not freed, the shoulder will lock and the infant will not pass. He works by the light of a low fire and a single kerosene lamp the clan has left for him. He reaches in, finds the trapped arm, and gently manipulates it forward and down, tucking it against the infant's chest. Then he uses a technique taught to him 20 years earlier by a Yakama midwife he met at a county fair. He has the mother shift onto her hands and knees, an instinctive position the clan already prefers, and he applies steady, rhythmic traction on the infant's feet, while another female, older and calm, presses firmly on the mother's lower back to tilt the pelvis and widen the outlet. The infant slides free in one smooth motion, a female, vigorous and squalling. The umbilical cord is thick as a garden hose. Elias ties it off with braided sinew, cuts it with a clean obsidian flake, gifted to him by the silver-haired male after the first birth, and wraps the infant in wool. The mother reaches for her baby, pulls her close, and makes a sound Elias has never heard before. Low, melodic, halfway between a hum and a purr. The older female touches Elias's shoulder. Her hand is warm. She smells like cedar smoke and wet stone. They let him stay for 10 minutes while the placenta delivers. Then the silver-haired male appears at the edge of the firelight and gestures. Time to go. Elias packs his satchel, douses his lamp, and walks out under a sky so thick with stars it looks like snow. The codes grow more elaborate. By 1987, the clan has begun leaving braided strips of cedar bark on low branches near his property. A single braid means all is well. A double braid, woven tight, means someone is pregnant and he should watch for signals. A braid left loose and unfinished is a warning. Humans nearby, hunters, cameras, danger. He learns to read the bark like a pulse. In 1989, he is called to a birth that goes wrong fast. The mother begins hemorrhaging minutes after delivery. Postpartum hemorrhage, the leading cause of maternal death in any species, blood soaks through the moss, dark and fast. Elias has no IV fluids, no hospital, no surgical suite. He has pressure, gravity, plant medicine, and his hands. He elevates her hips using a log rolled beneath her pelvis. He applies bimanual compression, one hand inside the uterus, one hand pressing down through the abdominal wall to manually contract the organ and slow the bleeding. An older female appears with a leather pouch and hands him a bundle of dried yarrow and a clay cup filled with a dark bitter tea made from boiled cotton bark. Elias does not know the pharmacology, but he knows the reputation. Yarrow is a coagulant used by frontiersmen and herbalists for wounds. Cotton bark contains salicin, a relative of aspirin, but also tannins that tighten tissue. He helps the mother drink the tea. He packs the vaginal canal with clean wool soaked in a tincture of yarrow. He prepared himself weeks earlier, stored in a glass vial wrapped in oilcloth. He holds pressure for 20 minutes, counting his own breaths to stay calm, while the clan forms a circle around them and hums, one low, resonant note that vibrates through the ground like a pulse. The bleeding slows, then stops. The mother's eyes flutter open. She is pale beneath the hair, her breathing shallow but steady. The infant, a male, is nursing. The grandmother takes Elias's wrist and squeezes it 3 times. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He walks out at dawn, hands still shaken, and finds a bundle waiting on the tailgate of his truck. Smoked salmon wrapped in cedar, 2 obsidian blades sharper than any scalpel he owns, and a small leather pouch filled with dried yarrow. He keeps the yarrow in his satchel for the next 30 years. There is a reciprocity he does not expect. The clan begins to protect him in ways he does not see until later. In 1991, a group of poachers sets up camp 2 miles from one of the birthing hollows. Elias hears about it from a Forest Service ranger at the feed store. Weird thing, they packed up in the middle of the night, left half their gear, said they heard something circling the camp, big, wouldn't stop moving, scared the hell out of them. Elias says nothing, but 2 days later, he finds a carefully arranged line of stones across the trail leading to that camp. A boundary marker. We handled it. In 1994, his daughter Isla, 8 years old and dangerously curious, follows him one evening when he leaves for a late call. He does not realize she is trailing him until he is a mile into the timber. He turns to go back and finds her standing in the middle of the trail, frozen, staring at something in the trees. Elias follows her gaze. The juvenile male, the one who witnessed the very first birth, now fully grown, is standing 15 feet off the trail, motionless, watching. He does not approach, he does not make a sound, but his presence is a wall. You do not go farther. Isla grabs her father's hand. Dad, what is that? Elias kneels down and looks her in the eyes. That's someone I help sometimes. He's not going to hurt you, but you can't follow me out here ever. Do you understand? She nods, silent, wide-eyed. The male waits until they turn back toward the house, then vanishes. That night, Isla asks, "Are you doctoring ghosts, Dad?" Elias does not answer, but he writes in his journal, "She saw him. She will remember. I do not know if this is dangerous or inevitable. By 1996, Elias has attended 23 births, 16 uncomplicated, 4 breech, 2 shoulder dystocias, 1 hemorrhage, 1 set of twins, both healthy, 0 fatalities. He keeps detailed notes in a leather-bound field journal, written in careful pencil, with hand-drawn anatomical diagrams. He sketches the shape of the pelvis, the angle of the birth canal, the size and position of the infant's skull. He records gestational timelines based on abdominal palpation and fundal height. He notes differences in placental structure, umbilical cord thickness, neonatal reflexes. He begins to call it privately hominid obstetrics of the wet forest. He stores the journal in a weathered apple crate beneath a stack of feed sacks in the barn, along with his hand-carved instruments, his vials of tincture, his skeins of undyed wool. He tells no one, not Anna, not his partner at the veterinary clinic, not the priest he sees at Christmas Mass. The oath he swore in that first Cedar Hollow is more binding than any he took in veterinary school. But the world is changing. In 1997, a trail camera appears on a tree near one of the access routes Elias uses. It is motion-activated, mounted by a hunter tracking elk. Elias finds it during a routine walk and disables it carefully, removing the SD card and leaving the camera hanging empty. In 1999, a logging company pushes a new road into a drainage 2 miles west of a known birthing site. The clan abandons that hollow. Elias finds the cairn knocked flat, stones scattered, and a single braid of cedar bark tied to a branch and left to weather gray. In 2003, a hiker with a digital camera posts blurry photos on an early internet forum. Strange footprints near Lake Quinault. Has anyone else seen these? The comments explode. Skeptics, believers, hunters, hoaxers. Elias reads the thread on a library computer and feels his stomach tighten. The forest is being watched now. The silence is thinning. In 2006, he is called to a complicated labor in the middle of a cold snap. The mother is struggling. The infant is asynclitic, head tilted at an angle that will not pass, and Elias has to manually rotate the skull inside the birth canal while the mother braces against a cedar and breathes in deep, controlled pulls. It takes 40 minutes. His hands go numb. But the infant is born alive, a stocky male with a full head of dark hair and eyes that track movement within minutes. As Elias cleans his instruments by firelight, the silver-haired male approaches. He is old now, moving stiffly, his face deeply lined. He kneels beside Elias and places a hand on the vet's shoulder. Then he does something he has never done before. He speaks. The sound is low, guttural, shaped by a throat not built for human language, but the meaning is unmistakable. Stay. Elias looks up, startled. The old male gestures to the fire, to the newborn, to the circle of adults standing watch. Stay. Rest. You are safe here. Elias stays for an hour. He drinks water from a leather bladder. He eats smoked fish offered by the grandmother. He sits by the fire and watches the infant nurse and listens to the sound of the forest at night. The drip of condensation from the canopy, the rustle of something small in the underbrush, the far-off hoot of an owl. For 1 hour, he is not a veterinarian, he is not a liar, or a secret keeper, or a man caught between worlds. He is just a guest. When he finally leaves, he finds a scattering of old weathered shell casings near the trailhead where he parked his truck. Rifle rounds, corroded, maybe 20 years old, and tucked beneath his windshield wiper. A braid of cedar bark left loose and unfinished. A warning. Elias drives home slowly, checking his mirrors. That night, He pulls an old newspaper clipping from a drawer in his desk, something he found years ago in the county library's archives, dated 1969. The headline reads, "Bounty offered for proof of forest giant, dead or alive." Beneath it, a grainy photo of men with rifles standing beside a tree line. He tapes the clipping into the back of his journal and writes, "Something old is still hunting, and I do not know how much longer we can stay ahead of it." He closes the journal, tucks it back into the apple crate, and turns off the barn light. Outside, the wind moves through the cedar, and somewhere in the dark, 3 knocks echo, slow and deliberate, then fade into silence. The 2000s arrive with lenses everywhere. In 2004, Elias watches a teenage boy at the gas station in Forks flip open a silver phone no thicker than a deck of cards and snap a photo of his friends without even thinking about it. The camera is built in, always ready. The image is digital, stored forever, shareable instantly. Elias pays for his fuel and drives home in silence. He realizes, with the slow creep of dread, that the forest is about to become transparent. By 2007, trail cameras are cheap enough that every casual hunter mounts one to a tree. They trigger on motion, capture, in infrared, store thousands of images on chips smaller than a postage stamp. Elias begins finding them on his routes, plastic housing strapped to trunks with bungee cords, red indicator lights blinking in the dark. He starts carrying a small toolkit in his satchel, a flathead screwdriver, needle nose pliers, a pencil magnet. When he finds a camera near a known site, he disables it carefully. He does not steal it. He does not smash it. He simply removes the SD card, exposes it to the magnet, and replaces it. The camera still blinks. The hunter still checks it, but the files are corrupted, unreadable. "Must have been a bad card," they say. Elias does this 19 times between 2007 and 2012. It is not enough. In 2009, the clan changes their behavior. They stop using the hollows closest to trails. They move deeper into roadless wilderness, into drainages so steep and tangled that even experienced hikers avoid them. The cairns appear farther from Elias's property now, sometimes 10 miles out, sometimes 15. He begins parking at different trailheads every time, walking in from different angles, wearing wool clothing that does not swish or reflect, rubbing cedar ash on his hands and face to mask his scent. He learns to sweep his tracks with broomed cedar boughs. He learns to walk in stream beds where footprints will not hold. He learns to park miles away and cache his satchel in a buried PVC tube so he can hike in light and retrieve his instruments closer to the site. He is 71 years old, and he is moving like a fugitive. Anna notices. She does not ask directly, but her silence is louder than questions. One evening, as he pulls on his boots by the back door, she sets down her knitting and says quietly, "Elias, you're going to get hurt out there, or worse." He looks at her. "I made a promise." "To who?" He does not answer. She picks up her knitting. "Then keep it, but come home." He always does. The protocols mature out of necessity. By 2010, Elias has developed a system of prenatal checks that do not require direct contact. He walks a perimeter around known nesting sites and reads signs the way a tracker reads game. Broken ferns that indicate a heavy body moving carefully, scat composition that signals dietary stress, claw marks on trees at specific heights that correlate with late-term postural changes. He learns to count the breaths of a laboring mother. From 30 yards away, by watching the rise and fall of her shoulders in firelight. He learns to assess fetal position by the shape of her belly and the way she shifts her weight. He learns that if the grandmother is present and standing close, the birth will be complicated. If she is sitting farther back, weaving cedar strips, the birth will be routine. The clan learns to read him, too. They know the sound of his gait. They know the smell of the iodine he uses to sterilize his hands. They know that if he kneels and opens his satchel slowly, he is calm. But if he moves fast and does not make eye contact, something is wrong, and they need to trust him without question. It becomes a language built in gesture and breath, refined over 30 years into something closer to surgery than conversation. In 2011, a drone appears. Elias does not see it at first. He only hears it, a high mosquito whine cutting through the forest quiet. He is 3 miles into a drainage, walking toward a spiral cairn, when the sound stops him cold. He looks up and sees it, a small quadcopter hovering above the canopy, maybe 60 feet up, mounted camera tilting and panning. Someone is flying it from somewhere nearby, looking for something, looking for them. Elias freezes. He is standing in partial cover beneath a hemlock, but if the operator reviews the footage carefully, they will see him. A man alone in the wilderness with a canvas satchel miles from any official trail. The drone hovers for 30 seconds. Then it banks west and disappears over the ridge. Elias does not move for 5 minutes. When he reaches the birthing site an hour later, the silver-haired male is waiting at the edge of the hollow. The old leader is frail now, his movements slow, his breathing audible. But his eyes are sharp. He gestures to the sky. Then he makes a motion with his hand, flat palm sweeping downward, brought it down. Elias stares. You knocked it out of the sky? The male points to a dense thicket of alder 50 yards downslope. Elias walks over and finds the wreckage, shattered plastic rotors, a cracked camera housing, the body of the drone half buried in soft ground. It looks like it was swatted out of the air by something large and fast. Elias returns to the hollow. The birth proceeds without complication. A healthy male, delivered in under 2 hours. But as Elias packs his instruments, he feels the weight of what just happened. They are being hunted from the air now. The old male watches him with an expression Elias has learned to recognize. We cannot do this much longer. The year 2013 begins with the heaviest snowfall the peninsula has seen in a decade. Elias is 76 years old. His knees ache in the cold. His hands shake when he ties sutures. But when the double spiral cairn appears on his fence post in early March, the signal for a high-risk birth, he packs his satchel and goes. The mother is the largest he has ever seen. Easily 7.5 feet tall, shoulders broad as a door frame, belly so swollen she can barely walk. The clan has built a shelter for her, a lean-to woven from cedar boughs and draped with hides, open on one side to a fire pit ringed with flat stones. It is the most elaborate birthing site Elias has ever been brought to. He understands immediately. This is the matriarch, the queen, and she is carrying twins. Labor begins at dusk and proceeds slowly. The first infant is cephalic, head down, and the delivery is textbook. A vigorous male, broad-chested and already a strong, delivered just after midnight. Elias clears his airway, ties off the cord, and hands him to the grandmother, who wraps him in woven rabbit pelts and sets him near the fire. But the second infant does not follow. Minutes pass, then 10 minutes. Elias palpates the mother's abdomen and feels the terrible shape of what is wrong. The second infant is transverse, lying sideways across the birth canal. It will not deliver in this position. It cannot. And if it stays there much longer, the cord will compress and the infant will die. He has maybe 15 minutes. Elias speaks quietly to the mother. I need to go in and turn the baby. It's going to hurt, but I need you to stay as still as you can. She nods. She is exhausted, drenched in sweat, her breathing shallow, but she trusts him. Elias pulls on a fresh pair of gloves, sterilizes his hands with grain alcohol, and begins an internal pedalic version, a procedure he has only done twice before, both times in cows. He reaches in, finds the infant's feet, and begins to gently rotate the body, pulling the feet downward and toward the birth canal while using his other hand on the outside to guide the head upward. The mother groans, a deep, guttural sound that shakes the walls of the shelter. The grandmother moves beside her and grips her hand. Two other females begin to hum, low and steady, the same resonant note Elias has heard a dozen times before. He works by the light of a pressurized lantern and the fire, his hands slick with blood and amniotic fluid, his shoulders burning from the angle. The infant is enormous, larger than the first. He can feel the feet now, the knees, the hips. He pulls gently, steadily, rotating the body another 30 degrees. The infant shifts. The feet engage in the birth canal. Elias exhales. Okay. Push now. When you feel the next contraction, push. She pushes. The infant's legs emerge, then the torso. Elias supports the body, checking the cord. It is looped once around the neck, but loose. He slips it over the head with one finger. The shoulders come next, then the head, slick and dark and impossibly perfect. But the infant is limp. No breath, no cry. Skin pale beneath the vernix. Elias lays the baby on a clean wool blanket near the fire and begins resuscitation. He clears the airway with the suction bulb, tilts the head back, and begins rhythmic compressions. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. Nothing. The humming stops. The shelter is silent, except for the crackle of the fire and the ragged breathing of the mother. Elias compresses harder. He breathes into the infant's mouth and nose, fills the tiny lungs, watches the chest rise and fall. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. The infant gasps, a small choked sound, then a stronger breath, then a thin, warbling cry. The humming resumes, louder now, triumphant. Elias wraps the infant, a female, in wool and hands her to the mother. She pulls, both twins to her chest, one in each arm, and makes a sound Elias has never heard before, a deep, rolling purr that vibrates through the ground. He sits back on his heels, his hands trembling, his shirt soaked through with sweat despite the cold. The grandmother approaches, kneels beside him, and touches his forehead with her palm. Her hand is warm and rough and steady. She does not speak, but Elias hears it anyway. You gave us tomorrow. He stays until the placenta delivers, 2 separate placentas, both intact, and until he's certain the mother is stable, no hemorrhage, vitals strong, both infants nursing. Then he begins to pack. He is exhausted. His focus is frayed. He moves on autopilot, rolling instruments into oilcloth, capping vials, folding wool, and in his distraction, he makes a mistake. He drops a blood-soaked wool cloth near the edge of the shelter. It falls into a shallow runnel of snowmelt, and by the time he realizes it is missing, the sky is beginning to lighten, and the clan is signaling that he needs to leave. He searches for 2 minutes, but cannot find it. The ground is a chaos of moss and mud and shadow. He tells himself it will degrade, it will rot, it will disappear into the forest the way everything does. He is wrong. 3 weeks later, a fisherman hiking a creek 2 miles downstream finds a scrap of fabric snagged on a root ball. It is wool, undyed, soaked in something dark and dried stiff. Curious, he bags it and brings it to a friend who works at a small private biolab in Olympia, one of the new citizen science operations that offers cheap genetic testing for hobbyists and amateur researchers. The lab tech runs a basic PCR sequence. The results flag immediately. The sample contains blood. The DNA is primate, but it does not match any sequence in the database. Not human, not chimp, not gorilla, not any known ape. The tech uploads the sequence to an open-access genetic repository, one of the collaborative databases researchers use to share findings. The algorithm picks it up in 48 hours. The file is tagged, cross-referenced, and escalated. By the end of the week, it has been flagged by an automated system run by the National Center for Biotechnology Information. By the end of the month, it has been reviewed by an analyst at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Division of High Consequence Pathogens and Emerging Threats. They do not know what it is, but they know it is real. It is biological, and it was found in Washington State. And they want to know where it came from. Elias does not know any of this yet, but he begins to notice things. In late April, an unmarked white truck idles on the gravel pullout near the access road he uses most often. It is there in the morning when he drives past. It is still there, or one just like it, when he returns 6 hours later. In May, he finds boot prints near one of his cache sites, a buried PVC tube where he stores his satchel. The prints are fresh, deliberate, patterned like tactical boots. They circle the tree twice, then head back toward the road. In June, a man in a Forest Service jacket stops him at the trailhead and asks politely what he is doing out here. "Bird watching," Elias says. The man looks at his canvas satchel. "Long way to carry binoculars." Elias smiles. "I like to be prepared." The man writes something in a notebook and walks away. In July, Elias finds a note under his windshield wiper. It is printed on plain paper, block letters, no signature. "Vet, you are not the only one counting." He reads it 3 times, then burns it in the fire pit behind his barn. That night, he pulls his journal from the apple crate and writes, "They are watching me now. I do not know who they are or what they know, but the net is tightening. I need to be more careful. I need to be invisible, or I need to stop." He stares at the page for a long time. Then he closes the journal, turns off the light, and walks to the fence line. The moon is nearly full. The pasture is silver and still. And there, on the top rail of the fence, he finds a single white stone. The clan is still watching, too. He picks up the stone, turns it over in his palm, and whispers into the dark, "I'm not stopping, not yet." He sets the stone back on the rail and goes inside. The forest holds its breath, and somewhere in a federal office 300 miles away, an epidemiologist named Rivas opens a file marked Unknown Primate DNA, Olympic Peninsula, and begins to build a map. The knock comes on a Saturday morning in February of 2022. It is not the kind of knock a neighbor makes. It is not the UPS driver or a lost hiker asking for directions. It is the knock of people who do not need to be let in because they already have permission. Elias is sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and the newspaper when he hears it. 3 sharp raps, evenly spaced, formal. Anna looks up from the stove. "Are you expecting someone?" He is not. He opens the door and sees 4 people standing on his porch. 3 of them are wearing dark blue jackets with yellow letters across the back. CDC. The 4th is a woman in business casual, holding a tablet and a leather portfolio. Behind them, parked in his driveway, are 2 white SUVs with government plates. The woman steps forward. She is in her 40s, composed with short dark hair and the kind of calm that comes from delivering bad news professionally. She offers a thin smile that does not reach her eyes. "Dr. Elias Moran." "Yes." "My name is Dr. Sandra Rivas. I'm with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Division of High Consequence Pathogens and Emerging Threats. These are my colleagues from the Epidemic Intelligence Service. We need to speak with you about a public health matter. May we come in?" It is phrased as a question, but it is not a question. Elias steps aside. They sit in his living room. Rivas sets the tablet on the coffee table and opens a file. The others remain standing, positioned near the door and the window, not threatening, just present. Rivas folds her hands. "Dr. Moran, are you familiar with a genetic sample recovered from the Clearwater Creek drainage in March of last year?" Elias keeps his face neutral. "No." The sample contained primate blood. The mitochondrial DNA sequence does not match any known species in the NCBI database. It also contained trace amounts of iodine, yarrow tincture, and wool fibers consistent with veterinary-grade materials. She pauses. "Your name came up in our investigation." "How?" "Cross-reference. You're a licensed veterinarian with a 40-year practice in large animal medicine. You've purchased iodine, suture, and obstetric supplies in bulk for decades. Your vehicle has been documented at trailheads near multiple sites where unidentified primate tissue or trace evidence has been recovered." She tilts her head slightly. "And 3 months ago, a Forest Service ranger filed a report about a man matching your description carrying a medical satchel into restricted wilderness." Elias says nothing. Rivas leans forward. "Dr. Moran, if there is an unidentified primate population in this region, and if that population is carrying novel pathogens, we need to know. This is not a criminal investigation. This is a public health priority. We are operating under the framework of pandemic preparedness. You are not in trouble, but we need your cooperation." Elias looks at her. "What exactly are you asking me?" "We need to know what you've seen, where you've been, what contact you've had." She opens the portfolio and slides a document across the table. It is printed on federal letterhead, dense with legal language. "This is a public health warrant. It authorizes us to compel your testimony, seize relevant materials, and quarantine any biological samples. It also protects you from liability under the Animal Welfare Act and the Endangered Species Act, provided you cooperate fully." Elias scans the document. The word "sealed" is stamped across the top in red ink. At the bottom, a judge's signature dated 4 days ago. He sets it down. "And if I don't cooperate?" Rivas's expression does not change. "Then we proceed without you. We expand the search grid. We bring in teams. We use drones, thermal imaging, canine units. We find what we're looking for. And when we do, we will have no context, no history, no understanding of behavior or ecology. We will treat it as a containment event." She pauses, "which means sedation, capture and relocation to a federal facility for observation and study. Elias feels his chest tighten. You're talking about rounding them up. We're talking about preventing an outbreak. They're not sick? You don't know that. I've been working with them for 45 years, Elias says quietly. I would know. The room goes silent. Rivas sits back. She exchanges a glance with one of the other agents. Then she closes the tablet. So, admit contact. Elias realizes too late that he has just given her exactly what she wanted. They move to the dining room table. Rivas sets up a small digital recorder and places it between them. One of the agents, a young man with wire-rimmed glasses, takes notes on a laptop. The other two remain standing. Rivas presses record. This is an interview conducted under Public Health Authority, February 19th, 2022. Present are Dr. Sandra Rivas, Dr. Elias Moran, and EIS officers Tan and Kellerman. Dr. Moran, do you consent to this interview? Elias nods. Verbal consent, please? Yes. Thank you. Dr. Moran, can you describe the nature of your contact with the unidentified primate population? Elias chooses his words carefully. I have provided emergency obstetric and neonatal care on an as-needed basis. How many times? I didn't keep count. Estimate. 40, maybe 50. Rivas writes something down. Over what period? 45 years. And you were never injured, never bitten, scratched, exposed to bodily fluids? I wore gloves. I sterilized instruments. I followed protocol. Whose protocol? Mine. Did you ever collect samples? Blood, tissue, hair? No. Why not? Elias looks at her. Because they trusted me, and I wasn't going to betray that. Rivas studies him for a long moment. Dr. Moran, do you understand that what you are describing constitutes ongoing contact with a potentially zoonotic reservoir? That you may have been exposed to novel viruses, bacteria, or parasites that pose a threat to public health? I understand. Then why didn't you report it? Because they're not animals, Elias says quietly. They're people, and I took an oath to do no harm. Rivas closes her notebook. Dr. Moran, the Hippocratic Oath applies to humans. These are not humans. Then what are they? She does not answer. They ask about locations. Elias gives them nothing specific. He describes terrain in broad strokes, drainages, ridge lines, forest types, but no coordinates, no trailheads, no maps. He describes behaviors, the cairn system, the braided bark, the way the clan moves in response to human presence. He describes anatomy, pelvic structure, placental morphology, neonatal reflexes. He offers theory without evidence. Rivas grows frustrated. Dr. Moran, we need actionable intelligence. We need to know where to look. If I tell you where to look, they'll disappear, or worse. Worse how? You'll spook them. They'll scatter. Some will get separated. Mothers with infants, juveniles. They'll make mistakes. They'll end up on trail cams and campsites on highways, and then you'll have your outbreak not from disease, but from panic. Rivas leans forward. Then help us do this the right way. The right way is to leave them alone. That is not an option. Then we have nothing else to talk about. Rivas stands. She gestures to one of the agents. Start with the barn. They search for 3 hours. Elias watches from the porch as they go through his barn, his truck, his workshop. They photograph everything. They bag instruments, his hand-carved retractors, his wool slings, his vials of tincture. They find the apple crate beneath the feed sacks and pull out the leather journal, the anatomical sketches, the field notes spanning 4 decades. Rivas flips through the journal slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she looks up at Elias. This is remarkable. It's private. Not anymore. She closes the journal and hands it to one of the agents, who seals it in a clear evidence bag. We're taking this and the instruments and any biological samples we find. There are no samples. We'll see. They load everything into the back of one of the SUVs. Rivas walks over to where Elias is standing and hands him a business card. We're going to need you to come to Seattle for a debrief. Formal setting, legal representation if you want it. We'll be in touch within 48 hours. And if I refuse, then we'll issue a subpoena. She pauses. Dr. Moran, I'm not your enemy. I'm trying to protect people. That includes you. But I need you to understand this is happening, with you or without you. She gets in the SUV. The convoy pulls out of the driveway and disappears down the road. Anna comes out onto the porch. She stands beside him, arms crossed against the cold. Elias, what have you done? He does not answer. That night, Elias sits at his desk and stares at the empty space where his journal used to be. Everything he built, every birth, every crisis, every moment of trust, is now in the hands of people who see it as data. He thinks about calling a lawyer. He thinks about running. He thinks about driving into the forest and warning the clan somehow that the world is closing in. But before he can do any of that, the power goes out, not just his house, the whole valley. A winter storm has moved in, sleet turning to snow, wind gusting hard enough to rattle the windows. The outage will last hours, maybe until morning. Elias lights a kerosene lamp and sits in the dark, and then he hears it. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate, coming from the direction of the pasture fence. He grabs his coat, pulls on his boots, and walks out into the storm. The snow is falling thick and fast, the kind that erases everything. Elias can barely see 10 feet in front of him, but he follows the sound. 3 more knocks coming from the tree line past the fence. He climbs over the rail and walks into the timber. And there, standing in a small clearing lit only by the pale glow of snow, is the juvenile male, the one who watched over Isla all those years ago, the one who has grown into a full adult now, broad and tall and scarred across the knuckles from a life Elias will never fully understand. The male gestures urgently. Follow. Elias does not hesitate. They walk for 2 miles through the storm. The male moves fast, checking back every few minutes to make sure Elias is keeping up. They cross a frozen creek, climb a steep ridge, and descend into a hidden drainage Elias has never seen before. At the bottom, beneath an overhang of basalt and cedar, is a birthing shelter, and inside, a young mother is in labor. She is small, too small. Her breathing is shallow and fast, her face contorted with pain. The grandmother is there, and 2 other females, but they are pacing, agitated. They do not know what to do. Elias kneels beside the mother and begins an exam. Cord prolapse. The umbilical cord has slipped into the birth canal ahead of the infant's head. Every contraction compresses the cord, cutting off oxygen to the baby. If it is not resolved in minutes, the infant will die. Elias has no satchel, no instruments, no gloves. He has only his hands and 45 years of muscle memory. He reaches in carefully, finds the cord, and lifts the presenting part of the infant's head to relieve the pressure. Then, with his other hand on the outside of the mother's belly, he gently pushes the infant back, just slightly, to create space. He holds the position, his arm trembling, while the grandmother moves to the mother's side and begins the low, resonant hum. The mother breathes, the contractions slow. Elias maintains pressure, counting his own heartbeat to stay calm, feeling the pulse in the cord strengthen beneath his fingers. After 5 minutes, he feels the infant shift. The head engages properly. The cord slipped to the side. "Okay," Elias whispers. "Okay, push now." She pushes. The infant's head crowns. Elias supports it with one hand, checks the cord, clear, and guides the shoulders out. The infant slides into his arms, slick and warm and impossibly small. It is not breathing. Elias tilts the head back, clears the airway with his pinky, and begins mouth to mouth. He breathes gently, filling the tiny lungs, watching the chest rise once, twice. The infant gasps, then cries. Elias wraps the baby in his own coat and hands it to the mother. She pulls it to her chest, her eyes wet, her breathing steadying. The grandmother touches Elias's shoulder. She holds his gaze for a long moment. Then she reaches into a woven pouch and pulls out something small and weathered. She places it in his palm and closes his fingers around it. It is the driftwood talisman, the same one given to him 45 years ago in a cedar hollow in the rain, the one with concentric circles carved into the grain. She is giving it back. Elias understands. The circle is closed. "You have given enough." He nods, his throat tight. The male steps forward and gestures toward the ridge. "You need to go." Elias stands. He looks at the mother, the newborn, the grandmother. He memorizes their faces the way he has memorized all the others. Then he turns and walks back into the storm. When he gets home, the power is still out. Anna is asleep by the wood stove. Elias sits at his desk and opens the drawer where he used to keep his journal. He pulls out a single photograph, a Polaroid, faded and creased, taken 30 years ago with a pinhole camera. It shows a newborn hand, tiny and perfect, wrapped around his finger. He has never shown it to anyone. He tucks it into his wallet and closes the drawer. 2 days later, Rivas calls. She wants him in Seattle by the end of the week. "We're prepared to offer you immunity," she says, "full cooperation in exchange for detailed testimony and site locations. You help us. We help you." Elias thinks about the talisman sitting on his desk. He thinks about the newborn he delivered in the storm. He thinks about 45 years of trust. "I'll come," he says, "but I'm not giving you locations." "Then what are you giving us?" "Knowledge, anatomy, physiology, timed observations, gestational data. Everything I know about how they live and how they give birth. You can have all of it, but no maps, no coordinates, no trails." There is a long pause. "That's not enough." "It's all you're getting." Another pause. "We'll see you Friday." Elias drives to Seattle with a lawyer he hired from Port Angeles, a sharp, tired woman named Brennan, who specializes in environmental and indigenous rights cases. They meet Rivas in a conference room on the 6th floor of a federal building downtown. Elias offers a deal. He will publish his findings. An anonymized obstetric atlas, peer-reviewed, submitted to a university press under a pseudonym. Every map edge will be torn away. Every location will be redacted. But the anatomy, the protocols, the data, it will all be there, immutable, public, protected. If they are recognized formally, Elias says, even in academic literature, they can be protected under endangered species statutes. Data can be a shield. Rivas considers this. She consults with her team. After 2 hours, she returns with a counteroffer. The CDC will not pursue further investigation on the condition that Elias submits to quarterly health screenings for zoonotic exposure, agrees to report any future contact. and allows the CDC to monitor publication of his atlas for any information that could compromise public health, and they will return his journal, one copy, heavily redacted. Anything that could identify a location will be blacked out, Riva says, but the medical records stay intact. Elias signs. 3 weeks later, a package arrives at his house. Inside is a photocopy of his journal, 218 pages, with every map, trailhead, and landmark blacked out in thick ink. The births remain. The anatomical sketches remain. The notes on protocol and tincture and hand-carved instruments remain. And tucked into the back, unredacted, is a single sentence he wrote 45 years ago. Who did I just become? Beneath it, someone, Rivas maybe, or one of her team, has written in pencil. Someone who kept a promise. Elias spends the next year writing. He works with a retired anthropologist from the University of Washington who agrees to serve as co-author under the condition of total anonymity. They title the manuscript Observations on Unclassified Hominid Obstetrics in Temperate Rainforest Populations. It is published by a small academic press in 2023. 12 copies are printed. It is not reviewed widely. It does not make headlines. But it is cataloged. It is cited. It exists. And in the back of one copy, Elias tucks the Polaroid, the newborn hand grasping his finger between the pages. He never shows it to anyone. On a cold morning in March of 2024, Elias walks the fence line of his pasture. He is 87 years old. His knees ache. His hands shake. But he still walks. He reaches the tree line and finds a cairn of flat stones stacked in a spiral. It has been there since yesterday. He does not know who left it. Maybe the juvenile male, now old himself. Maybe someone new. He kneels slowly and places a hand on the top stone. It is warm, as if someone has been holding it. And beneath the cairn, half buried in moss, is a small bundle wrapped in woven cedar bark. Elias unwraps it carefully. Inside is a hand-stitched sling made of undyed wool, the same kind he used to make. The stitching is careful, tight, perfect, a gift or a promise. If you call, we will answer. Elias folds the sling and tucks it into his coat. He stands, his breath misting in the cold, and looks into the trees. He whispers, I will answer if you call. The forest is silent, and somewhere, deep in the timber, 3 soft knocks echo, slow and deliberate, then fade into the morning. Elias turns and walks home. The circle holds